creating the next section, I create a class called content in the style.css section. I come back to the style.css section. Now I type as .content in the 10th line and open curly brackets, enter between the curly brackets and go to the 11th line. Now I have finished creating the class. Now I give as margin dash top colon 100px semicolon to create the space between the header and the content section in the 11th line, and also give as margin dash bottom colon 100px semicolon in the 12th line. I give as font dash size colon 20px semicolon in the 13th line and give as text dash align colon center semicolon in the 14th line. You already know what happens in these parts. I am going to create the CSS code for the paragraph. I type as P from the 16th line, open curly brackets, enter between the curly brackets and go to the 17th line. Let's create the code for the color, font size and the font type that we apply to a paragraph. I give as color colon hash 1D1A05 semicolon from the 17th line. Now from the 18th line, font dash size colon 18px semicolon is given from the 19th line. It is given as font dash weight colon bold semicolon. Now from the 20th line, I type font dash family colon roboto inside single quotation and give a semicolon outside the quotation. Now I am going to create the CSS code to create the table. I type as table in the 22nd line, open curly brackets, enter between the curly brackets and go to the 23rd line. I create the necessary codes for the table border from here. I want to see the cells of this table separately. So I give as border dash collapse colon separate semicolon from the 23rd line. Now I type as border dash spacing colon 1px semicolon from the 24th line. Now we are going to create the necessary codes for the table head. I type as th from the 26th line, open curly brackets, enter between the curly brackets and go to the 27th line. From here, I give as color colon black semicolon and in the 28th line, I give as font dash size colon 22px semicolon. And in the 29th line, I type as font dash family colon roboto inside single quotation and give a semicolon outside the quotation. Now we are creating another class called items. I type as dot items in the 31st line. Open curly brackets, enter between the curly brackets and go to the 32nd line. From this line, I give as height colon as 30% semicolon and go to the 33rd line. I give as width colon 90% semicolon in this line. Now I give as border dash radius colon 3px semicolon from this line 34 and border colon 1px solid RGB from line 35 in brackets and 00004 in brackets and apply semicolon outside the bracket. Now from this line 36, I give as background dash color colon hash FFD 384 semicolon. Now I give as margin colon auto semicolon from line 37. Now I want these items in the middle of the container, so I type as dot items smaller than star in the 39th line, open curly brackets, enter between the curly brackets and go to the 40th line. It is given as margin colon auto semicolon in the 40th line. Now let's create the CSS code for the table row. For that, I create an ID for the table first. For that, I give as hash disaster table tr colon first dash child from the line 42 and apply curly brackets. I enter between the curly brackets and come to the line 43 and it is given as border colon hash 53b578 semicolon. With this, we had given the color of the first row of the table we are creating. Now let's create the background color of the second row of the disaster table and the even rows we get from there. For that, I give as hash disaster table tr colon nth dash child open bracket even from the line 45 and apply curly brackets. I enter between the curly brackets and come to the 43rd line and give as background colon hash semicolon. Now we have created a lot of CSS codes. Now let's create the CSS code to add the list. For that, I give as li in the 48th line and use the curly brackets. I enter between the curly brackets and come to the 49th line and give as list-style colon non-semicolon. We know that when a list is added, a bullet is added. We give none to remove this bullet. Now I give as margin colon as 10px semicolon from the 50th line. Now let's add a background for the first line. From line 52, I give as li colon first dash child and apply curly brackets. I enter between the curly brackets and come to the line 53 and give as background colon hash 67C07E semicolon. Now let's add a background for the second list. From the 55th line, I enter as li colon nth dash child open brackets 2 and apply curly brackets. I enter between the curly brackets and come to the 56th line and give as background colon hash dbe6fd semicolon. Now let's add a background for the third list. From line 58, I enter as li colon nth dash child open brackets 3 and apply curly brackets. I enter between the curly brackets and come to the 59th line and give as background colon hash ff7b54 semicolon.